Hello, everyone. What's happening? Oh, great to see you. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I've just kicked all the. We've got. I'm staying with my friends here in London, and they're all work. There's three men in the house, all working from home, and um, they they. I'm like, I'm going to be noisy for half an hour. Can you guys cope with it? They're like, oh, get out of the way. I'm like, you can't use the coffee machine for half an hour. So, hi everyone. We better make this worthwhile because I've disrupted everyone's life over here. It's lovely to see you. As you can see, it's beautiful here in London town at this time of the morning. It's 9 o'clock. Hello, Angela. How lovely to see you. Welcome back. We've missed you. Now, what's been going on? Yes, hello, Rob and Deb. Hello, Alison. Hello, Fiona. Greg and Haley. Lovely to see you. David. Hi. Cuddy, I know. How good is that picture? It's like we got the changing of the guards in winter, and these policemen with these automatic rifles. And I'm like, English policemen don't carry guns, but they do now. There's a lot of security issues here at the moment, apparently. So everything's changed. Hello, Cuddy. John and Cuddy here. Breakfast of mushrooms on toast to go with your penny. No, I'm actually going to taste the wine this morning, and then I'm going to leave the rest of the bottle for my lovely hosts here in London. Charlotte and I are popping off to Paris later today, so we'll leave it behind as a thank you for having us gift. Craig, I hear that it's absolutely freezing in Sydney and in Melbourne at the moment. It's a balmy, I don't know, 20 something degrees here at the moment, and I got sunburnt yesterday walking around London with Charlotte. Charlotte and Karen have gone off to do some last minute shopping at Marks and Spencer's while I do this, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, freezing there. I know, Greg and Haley. Hello, Emily and all. Emily and Kevin, how are you? Kay, good to see you. Now, Kay, I haven't properly responded to you, but we'll talk about that during this call, so that would be awesome. Hello, Linda. Hello, Sarah, and all the tricks. Hello, Shell. Daryl and Sue, hello. Yes, well, a little bit of jet lag, but we're just pushing through, Charlotte and me. We've been waking up at silly o'clock in the morning, but you know, David. Hello, Jeff and Sue. How you going? Yes, I know. I had sun cream on as well. It's very, very unlike me to get burnt in the UK. I think I was just getting a little bit too cocky. So anyway, it's not going to hurt. I'm just going to go brown, so I'll be fine. Anne, hello. You got mushrooms duck. Good work. Send me a photograph. I've already had one from Fiona and David, which looks delicious. So we are having a competition today. Send me your photos through on the emails, and I'll judge the competition, and I'll let you know in a couple of weeks who won. I'll post some photos and stuff. It'll all be a wonderful thing. Hello, Jackie. How you going? All right. So without any further ado, we should have a little talk about this wine, and then I'll tell you more about London. Because you guys are probably thirsty, me not so much at 9 o'clock this morning, but I haven't had a coffee yet, so I thought taste the wine first. And I realised that I've come to the table without a spittoon, so I will have to swallow it. I'm on holiday though, so it's okay. Hopefully Jill and Richard are watching. I sent you the link. Hopefully you've been able to make it work. And Peter and Jeremy and Leonie. Hi, everyone. I hope everything's going okay at Moorooduc. And I only made one mistake before I went away. I'm not telling anyone about that, but that's okay. Right. Okay. So I've got one of Karen's. I've got Karen's wine glass, which very kindly has a little charm on it. So I know it's mine, I think from Christmas. I have my wine, my Moorooduc Estate, the Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot Noir 2015. Now, I don't think I can emphasize enough how special I think this box is, because I think the 15s were such a beautiful vintage. I'm really excited about tasting this one. I'm a little bit sad about not drinking it at a reasonable time of the day, but I think I'll be able to work through it anyway. Hello, Jeremy. How you going? Let's get this little beauty in the glass. Now, it sounds like there's quite a lot of duck and mushroom going on out there in tasting and eating land. And sorry about the I think the computer's struggling with all of the different colours and lights and shade, but I just thought you needed to see this gorgeous garden that I'm working next to. Hello, Leonie. Cheers. So this wine, beautiful colour. It's starting to go a little brick coloured, a little bit of terracotta in there, which shows that it's aging nicely. I had another conversation with some people from Singapore and Vietnam the other week about wine aging under screw cap, and we all know with Drinks with Kate that our wine ages beautifully and slowly and elegantly under screw cap, but there's still people out there in the world who are persisting with the myth that wine can only age under cork, which is ridiculous. We know that's not the case, but we have to keep explaining to people and showing people how it works and all that kind of thing. So beautiful developing color, not too dark, not too light, a little translucency there, beautiful. Giving it a bit of a swirl. I don't have any Pinot Noir glasses here, but that's all right. I'm making do with what I've got, and very nice glass it is too. Okay, so it's taking a little while to open up. It's still a little bit shy in this glass, but hopefully David, I know. This is serious, Craig. This is, I guess, probably because we're doing only 5 wines in this pack, I kind of felt like, also, to be fair, I chose the wines depending on where I was going to be staying for the 2 events that I was doing over here, because I wanted to share this special wine with these special people that I'm staying with. I think that they'll have a lovely time with it tonight. So just opening up slowly, slowly, slowly. It's quite savoury on the nose, but it's getting now with the little bit of air, it's starting to give off a little bit of sort of dried rose petal perfumes. Shell, efficient or lazy? How grilled cheddar on seeded sourdough. Sounds beautiful, Shell. Sounds good winter fare. A little bit of rose petal. The cherry is starting to come up, but it's almost like sort of dried cherries, red and black. But there's lots of earthy notes, lots of sous-bois, some nice little herb characters, there's a bit of that soy and Chinese 5-spice kind of spice starting to come up. Okay, what a shame you haven't got the 2015. 2019 is delicious as well, and will go very nicely with a burger in a homemade focaccia bun. Sounds awesome. Now, just between you guys and me, don't forget that if you haven't bought this box yet and you're having a little bit of FOMO or a little bit of regret, or even if you've bought it and drunk halfway through and thought, I quite like these wines, it's still on the shop. You can still order it if you want another box or 2 in your cellar. I would say these wines are drinking perfectly right now, but they're not going to fall over in the next year or so. So, I think don't forget that just because we've kind of tasted through some of these wines doesn't mean that while they're on the shop, you can still order it. And I think that would be a very smart thing to do. All right, I'm getting lots of air into this wine, partly because my morning nose is not as ready for it as your evening noses. But I'm gonna have a taste. That is stunning. So really interestingly, the nose is still quite closed in my glass. It's taking quite a while to open up, but it's kind of giving little hints. And then you put it on your palate, and it's got all this gorgeous kind of raspberry and red cherry and black cherry fruit. And gorgeous. Yeah, that beautiful star anise and cinnamon spice, Fiona. It's really lovely. Oh, Jeremy, that's good. Birth-year wine collection for Ilka. Perfect. Lucky Ilka. Yeah, a great vintage. And the spice is coming through more on the palate for me than on the nose right now. But it's going to breathe up. It's going to change in the glass a lot. So, it's got all those lovely kind of summer fruit notes on the palate still, even though the nose has faded into something a bit more savoury. Hopefully it's going well with whatever food you've chosen to match it to. I'm sure that that roast duck that I got sent a picture of would be delicious with this, but I think it would be equally good with grilled cheese, be really wonderful with mushrooms. So duck pate also, and will be super duper. Beef Wellington, Greg and Hayley, that sounds delicious. Yeah, that's the cool thing about this wine. Even though it looks quite pale in colour, it's got the strength and the structure and the intensity to cope with quite rich protein dishes. And I do like this wine with a little grilled steak or beef, well, a bit of fillet of beef. It works really well with those flavors and textures that you get from a really good piece of steak. Peking duck sounds good, David. All right, so the perfume's coming up a little bit more. More red fruit, more red cherry. Still those lovely spicy notes, and a little bit of sandalwood. And this wine doesn't have a huge amount of new oak in it. It's just got a little bit. I think Jeremy might remember better than me, but it was probably about 25-30% new oak, if that, in 2015. But that little sandalwood note, people assume that comes from the oak, and I actually think it's a character of the vineyard, and it comes up with a little bit of bottle age more than it does when the wine is really young. And it's something that I see in almost all of the McIntyre Pinots that I taste when they've got sort of, 8 to 15 years bottle age on them. So yeah, it's just emerging here, that sort of savoury, perfumed, woody kind of aromatic, which I really like, wood-based, woodsy kind of smelling perfumes as well. So I think that's my comfort zone, is that kind of nice savoury but lifted perfume. Taking me back to Bali a few weeks ago, having massages with sandalwood oil. That was nice too. A little less because it's such a, I think that's right, Jeremy. A little bit less than the 25% that was sort of normal back then, because it was a mild year. We wanted to let the fruit kind of shine through, and I think that you can sort of see that in this wine, because it's not showing a lot of new oak, but it's showing a lot of complexity, and the structure that it's getting from it is also from those lovely skins of the grapes. Coddy, the flavour expert, going well. It is quite explosive on the palate still. Very fresh, very bright. Going well with Ottolenghi's mushroom pasta bake. Okay, Coddy, I don't mind if you don't send a photo. Brown food, I love brown food when it's good, and mushroom and pasta is a bit of a fave. But I might, my friends that I'm staying with actually I'm looking at their recipe book collection. They've got Ottolenghi's simple book. So I might suggest to them they might want to do something mushroomy with this tonight. Although it is summer, so they might just have a salad. It's really got this lovely floral top note coming through as well on the palate. It's not just rose petals, there's a little bit well. It's really, I find these wines at this age, they have a lot in common with the things that I like about perfume, and it's not too strong, they're subtle, all these kind of lovely layers of spice, and I don't see as much of the herbal notes in this wine anymore. There's a tiny little bit of sort of dried thyme, dried oregano in there, but that's kind of receded, and the spice and the fruit and the florals are all kind of coming up, and then that lovely sandalwoody cedary kind of a note to kind of support everything at the base, which is really gorgeous. I think, as I say, this is pretty exciting to be tasting this 2015 wine. Would go very well with the Tom Ford Noir. Thank you, Craig. It's funny because a lot of people, because when we talk about wine tasting, we always say, oh, make sure you're not wearing perfume, make sure you're not wearing, smelly body additions like creams and deodorant even that's too perfumed. Wear deodorant for sure, but a nice subtle one. And so when we start talking about wine and we start talking about perfume, I think a lot of people kind of go, oh, but you can't mix wine with perfume. And I'm certainly not suggesting that. Although when you're drinking it in a social setting like this, and your smells, your perfume that you wear, your aftershave, your moisturizer, whatever it happens to be, you get used to it. But I think there's a lot to be said for really good perfume being compared to really good wine, because what we're looking for in both things is harmony and something that smells delicious. Then we take wine a step further. It has to taste delicious as well. And I don't know about you, but I don't drink perfume. But also when we're describing the nose of wines, the descriptors are very similar to perfume descriptors. And it's because perfume is actually traditionally made from all of the aromatics that we like to describe in wine. The big difference is that for perfume, the aromatics, if they're natural, come from that thing. So if we're talking about jasmine aromatics in perfume, it's probably got jasmine oil in it, or a synthetic version of that these days. We talk about musk and it'll have musk in it. We talk about star anise and it will have essential star anise oil in the perfume, and it's mixed together by the parfumier. With wine, we do a little bit of blending at the end, but most of those perfumes and most of that complexity and the layers of flavour come from what nature decides to give us from the vineyard. And that is affected somewhat by how well we look after the vineyard, what the season has been like, how big the crop is, how quickly the grapes ripen, because as we've sort of discussed before, if it's a coolish season, then the grapes ripen more slowly, but you tend to develop more complex layers of aromatic and flavour. The flavours build over the time that it takes for the sugar to go up and the acids to go down and the grapes to be perfectly ripe. So nature does for us in wine, with a little bit of help and manipulation from the grape growers and winemakers, what famous parfumiers do in their laboratory, putting all the different aromas together to make the perfect perfume. So, often when I find a wine that I really love, it evokes a reaction from me that I'd like a perfume like that. I can't recommend dabbing it behind your ears, because then you just smell like a bit of a wino, but a wine that makes you want to kind of, pop it on your pulses as well as drink it is the sign of a really good wine. Jill is texting me and Polly is watching. Oh, duh. Hi, Polly. Hi, Paul. My dog's watching me. That must be very confusing. I hope you're giving her a glass of wine, Jill and Richard, to ease her nerves. Oh, that's a gorgeous picture. Thank you, Mum. Rob and Deb, dumb question. So a tertiary characteristic can be expressive of terroir as well as the aging process itself. Yes. So basically, tertiary characters come from primary characters combined with secondary characters combined with age. So a lot of the tertiary characters are evolutions of the original primary characteristics that you get from the terroir, from the grapes, from the actual fruit. Then you add in the winemaking, which adds your secondary characteristics, and then with the luxury of time, develop into tertiary characters. So it's all part of the same big mix, and that's why a lot of time we talk about aging, about how aging good wine will actually make it better, or different at least, not always better, but certainly different, evolving. And some people will always prefer to drink very, very young wine, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But other people will enjoy that sort of process of the wine changing over time and the primary and secondary characters becoming more tertiary. So, it's all kind of, it's fairly linear, Rob, and it's all. Tertiary characters don't just kind of conjure themselves out of nowhere. I guess that's probably the best way of sort of summarising that. And some of you might be tasting this wine thinking, I maybe would have liked it better when it was a little bit more fruity and a little bit less savoury. And that's absolutely valid as well. And if you're thinking that, then probably you need to drink your Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot when it's maybe 5 years of age rather than when it's 8 years of age, or 3 to 5 years of age. But if you're enjoying the evolution of the wine and you're thinking, oh, that's really cool, and we'd like to maybe see it evolve more, then having a cellar or somewhere temperature controlled, you can rent cellar space off site if you don't have a cellar or a wine fridge at home to look after wine. Then that's a good argument for it to get to taste how the wines age. Fiona, I think that's a really good point as well. We like it. A lot of us like all the stages. So, and people think that I'm just trying to like make a better sale when I say if you really like a wine and if you believe that it's got ageability, then it is worth buying 6 bottles or 12 bottles if you can afford it and if you've got somewhere to put it, because buying a couple of bottles here and a couple of bottles there and then the vintage runs out and you have to buy the next vintage, it's always, I think there's always that little feeling of regret that you haven't been able to see the wine evolve fully. And I guess we kind of ameliorate that process by releasing these boxes for you guys so that you can enjoy the effort that we've put into aging the wines. But it's also something that I think is really important to show, because a lot of people don't get a chance to age wine, don't get to have a chance to taste these wines with a little bit of a bottle age, and so have no idea whether it's going to work or not. Rob and Deb, I'm thinking the 8-year mark is perfect for it. I love drinking Pinots and our Chardonnays at about 8 to 10 years of age. Makes me very happy. So I agree. I think the 8-year mark is pretty awesome for these wines. Craig, the fruit's coming through on the back end of this. Yeah, absolutely. And Cottie's seeing some sweet candy. So yeah, I think there is that sort of candied evolution. It's almost like a sort of boiled sweet kind of aromatic that I think is definitely a tertiary character. It's like the fresh cherry fruit has sort of the sugar, the sort of sweetness of the fresh cherry fruit has caramelized and giving you those sort of those sort of more hard candy kind of aromatics as well. Alison, it's really funny you say that. I would never have the wine memory to compare, but I've loved the 2013 and the 2015 boxes. People underestimate their ability to remember how they've enjoyed a wine. And you're not necessarily going to remember all the nuance of the wine if you say you buy a 6-pack and you drink 1 bottle a year for 6 years. You're not necessarily going to remember exactly what it was that you liked before or later, but it will become more familiar to, and I think that drinking more across the Moorooduc Estate range as well gives you more of a familiarity and more of a palate feel for the Moorooduc Estate wines, and so then you will have better memories, more vivid memories of the previous Moorooduc wines that you've tasted when you've tasted the one before. Absolutely. Now, Kay, that's a very interesting question, because you may very well have 2011 Pinot Noir from us, but it won't be McIntyre Pinot, because we did not make 2011 McIntyre Pinot. 2011 was that very strange year. We made Estate Pinot Noir in 2011, which might be what you've got in the cellar, Kay, and I think that would still be drinking. We'll still be drinking all right, but yes, probably you want to drink it sooner rather than later. Or it'll be Robinson Pinot, which was the only single vineyard wine that we made in 2011. And I think Jeremy and I had a look at the Robinson Pinot recently, and I think we're slightly disagreed about where it's at. I think Jeremy's feeling is that he liked it better a couple of years ago. I still think it's hanging on in there, but it's definitely getting towards the end of its life. 2011 was a very delicate year for Pinot. If you remember, it was that very wet, strange season, and a lot of people didn't make any Pinot at all, or declassified their Pinot and didn't release it under their label. We made small quantities, and in fact, we made mostly Devil Bed Creek Pinot because that's, lots of fruit got declassified. Oh, it's Chardonnay, okay. Well, the 2011 McIntyre Chardonnay will hang on in there for a little bit longer, but you might want to drink it sometime. Spoiler alert, there could very well be some 2011 Chardonnays going into a box at some stage in the not too distant future, because I think those wines are looking pretty awesome, and we can remind ourselves about that difficult vintage by tasting them. So yeah, no, don't rush with those, Kay. You might get a chance to sort of check it without having to broach your collection in the next few months. Yes, Fiona, we all love aged Chardonnay, and I think that that's going to be a lot of. I promise not to lead you astray. I promise not to spoil my so far fairly unblemished record with aged Chardonnays. It's a bit scary, but I think we're up for the challenge these days. That nose is still evolving and developing, and there's kind of an earthy, truffly kind of a note coming through now for me, that the fruit character's really kind of faded and evolved, and that's what oxygen will do to a wine like this, that it will change quite quickly in the glass compared to a young wine. And but on the palate, the flavours just expanding and expanding. It's really, really wonderful. So super awesome. Thank you, Craig. I'm glad it's a highlight. Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy is giving us a little more information on oak. So oak doesn't just add flavour; it adds oak tannin, which provides antioxidant potential. It can help with mopping up evolution a bit, but if you want to make a wine live longer, but maybe be slightly less approachable at a young age, you can give a wine more new oak to preserve it for longer. And I think that's why, and this is also the balancing act that we have to do while we're making modern wine in Australia. That we want our wines to be able to age. Oh, throwing new oak at wine wouldn't make it live longer. Thank you, Jeremy. You see a lot of people, that makes more sense. You see a lot of people giving wine more new oak to try and make it look more serious. And I think if the fruit intensity and the concentration of flavour is not there, then the oak's just going to dominate the wine and not make it age for longer. On the other hand, if you've got really amazing fruit and you give it a lot of new oak, then you're going to overwhelm the flavour of this amazing this amazing fruit with new oak, which may or may not come into balance somewhere down the line. Oh, Jeremy's got butterfingers making potato rosties. Lovely. That sounds nice. So we on purpose don't use as much oak these days as we used to, and I think our fruit quality is better than it was 15, 20 years ago, because the vines are older and we're doing more in the vineyard or less in the vineyard, depending on your sort of the way you look at it. But we're working harder in the vineyard to make things better on the vine. But less new oak, because the fruit's so beautiful. Why would you cover it up with oak? And it means that you can approach the wine as a young wine and really enjoy all the fruit characteristics. And then as it ages, it'll do this, hopefully, with fingers crossed. So David drank a 2011 Robinson Chardonnay last week. Okay, gotcha. Gorgeous. I think the Chardonnays from 2011 are aging better than the Pinots. The Pinots we always thought the Pinots were going to have quite a short life span, so we were surprised at how long they actually went. But yeah, they are starting to fade a little bit because they were quite delicate. Chardonnays had amazing acid structure and amazing flavours that took a long time to evolve. So those Chardonnays are probably going to go for quite a bit longer. But you know, always difficult to to really know. Yes, Jeremy always makes us hungry when he tells us what he's cooking, which is lovely. Oh, Shell, a revelation. This cookie from Bread Club is the perfect pairing with the wine. Toffee, salted caramel, gooey chopped chip. Oh my goodness. That sounds pretty amazing, Shell. And the tannins have softened and the acid is kind of in balance with the fruit. So I think that's why it copes with those sweet flavours. Craig, we're going to start talking about my trip now, are we? That sounds good. I am not taking in any wineries in France. So my program is that this week going to Paris, just to Paris, with my 15-year-old niece. We are going to have a wonderful girls' trip, and we're gonna just take on Paris in all its glory. So Charlotte's not a huge fan of wineries. Surprise, surprise, as a 15-year-old girl. And I'm quite happy to not be doing any wineries as well. I will be then going to Germany and visiting some wineries and attending the Master of Wine Symposium for 4 days in Wiesbaden. And then I'll come back to the UK and do some work in and around London and down south as well. I'm going as far as Southampton for a tasting, so that'll be fun. But yeah, so no real. No, it's not a wine tour, Craig, at all. So I feel quite freed by that. It's kind of nice. I did think about taking Charlotte to Champagne for a day, but if we get really bored of Paris, which we won't, we might do that. But I think that Paris's charms will keep us very busy for the next 7 days. Emily, how do the 2015 single vineyards differ? We still have magnums of each. Emily, have we had the Robinson, or are we having that next week? I can't remember if we did the Chardonnay or the Pinot Noir last week. Yeah, we had the Robinson Pinot Noir last week, and I think we're doing the Robinson Chardonnay in 2 weeks' time. So that's aging really nicely as well, Emily. And the 2015 Garden Vineyard Pinot is absolutely delicious and just starting to kind of soften and evolve. And the Garden Vineyard, particularly from a year like 2015, needs a bit more time than the other two. Oh, you were away last week. That's all right. The magnums will just remember that the magnums age slowly. And I think, Emily, if I remember correctly, that magnum event that you bought the 2015 magnums from was the first event that you came to at Moorooduc, if I remember correctly. Certainly, we got to know each other better after that, which is really awesome. So yes, so your magnums will be looking good, but a little bit less evolved than the bottles. So they'll still be tighter and a little bit more fruit driven, but Jeremy and I looked at the 15 magnums about a bit more than 6 months ago, and they look pretty good. You just would want to let them open up a bit more in the glass or in a magnum. You can just pop them gently into a magnum or just let them kind of evolve in the glass. It is a beautiful wine, Jackie. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It is, and the smoothness, that's something that you really get from that amount of bottle age, which I think is really nice. Craig, we're all very friendly in Europe now. The French will be fine. But no, Germany is very much for the MW Symposium. It's all happening. There'll be 400 of us in this little town just outside of Frankfurt. Lots of wine, and there's wine tastings from all over the world happening. So I think we'll go maybe into wine country for one of the dinners, but most of the time will be in a big convention centre in town and various tastings and things. So yeah, not really classic wine touring, but very much getting together with some old friends who I haven't seen for a while, which will be fun. And I get to pour some Moorooduc Estate wines as well. Jonathan, this looks like a good question. Why do you use whole bunch in your garden vineyard range, but none at all for your other vineyards? Does it have to do with the treatment of the fruit character? So, Jonathan, there's a few parts to this answer. First of all, we, and particularly Richard, love doing whole bunch ferments with red wine. And so over the years, there have been numerous experiments with different parcels of fruit. And the parcel of fruit that produces the most delicious whole bunch wine is that parcel of garden vineyard fruit. We find with the Robinson vineyard, whole bunch tends to get in the way of the elegance and the purity and the line and the texture of the wine. And there is a Robinson vineyard Pinot out there that we've tasted together last year or the year before. I think it was 2013. Anyway, someone will be able to remind me. Kay will probably be able to tell me from her notes, that has 20% whole bunch in it. And that was a wine that Dad and I disagreed on, and he made the wine with the whole bunch in it because he believed that it would make a better wine. I believed that it would be more difficult to sell because it would be less typical of a Robinson wine. Turns out we were both right. The wine is delicious, but it was much more difficult to sell. So we've agreed that the Robinson Pinot will be made 100% distem because we think that character is a character that people have come to expect from the wine. And we get also in the McIntyre and the Robinson Pinot, we have various clones that we can blend together to build complexity and layers of flavour, whereas the Garden Vineyard is 100% MV6 clone. So there's not that clonal variation that we can use to build complexity, and there's a purity and a beautiful drive to the MV6, but we find by doing a whole bunch ferment for the Garden Vineyard fruit that goes to the single vineyard wine, we get a little bit more structure, we get a little bit more complexity, we get a bit more savouriness, and we like the results there. We particularly like the shape of the tannins that we get from the Garden Vineyard Pinot. We do make a little bit of Shiraz that's 100% whole bunch as well, Jonathan, and we use whole bunch for the Shiraz for the same reason. It gives it a bit more, depth, savouriness, texture. So Fiona wants to know, once we finish blending, do the leftovers go to the estate wine? So with the Garden Vineyard, we actually separate the fruit that's destined for the estate wine from the fruit that's destined to be fermented as whole bunch for the single vineyard wine right at the beginning of the winemaking. So from the vineyard, we have two major parcels of fruit that come from the Garden Vineyard. One parcel is almost always designated for estate wine, and the other parcel is almost always designated for single vineyard Garden Pinot. So if that single vineyard Garden Pinot doesn't work out the way we want it to, it will usually be declassified to the Devil Bent Creek Pinot, because we usually make larger volumes of the Devil Bent Creek Pinot, and the little bit of whole bunch character in that tiny batch of Garden Vineyard Pinot is more likely to kind of fade into the background of the Devil Bent Creek Pinot rather than into the estate Pinot, because we just find that the estate Pinot as well doesn't need a lot of whole bunch, or if any whole bunch character in it, to be typical and be the most delicious wine that we think we can make from the fruit that we have. Okay, so I think that's pretty much the explanation, Jonathan, for Garden Pinot being whole bunch. Alison, could I recommend Les 110 de Taillevent in Paris? Ooh. Thank you, Alison. We will certainly have a look at that. Again, not sure Charlotte's going to be that keen on that. She is vegetarian, and she's enjoying tasting some wines, but I'm not sure if she'd go for the whole shebang. But if I don't get to go this time, Alison, I'll certainly have it on my list for next time I come to Paris, with more wine drinkers in tow, because that sounds amazing. And I've always wanted to go to Taillevent. Haven't been there yet, so yeah, definitely on my list. Robinson Pinot Noir 2013. Thank you, Kay. We did in April this year. There you go. Is that the one though that had the whole bunch in it? I think it was, but I can't remember. Jonathan, I happen to have 2013 in the cellar. Give it a go, Jonathan. Because I'm not at home and I don't have my notes with me, and I am a little bit jet lagged still, I think it was the 13. If Jeremy's still on the line, he might be able to tell me, or if Richard's watching and he'll remember because he's got a great memory for these things. Dad, if you know the answer, if you wouldn't mind texting it to me, that would be awesome. Okay, so yes, Cotty. Well, the decision is usually made even before picking, because there are two quite distinct parcels. There are two quite distinct parts of the garden vineyard that have different aged vines and ripen differently. And the house block is the one that I think tends to go to the single vineyard wine, but I could be getting that wrong as well. But yeah, there's two blocks, and one almost always goes to single vineyard, one almost always goes to estate wine, and that's good, because it means that we've got that beautiful fruit in the mix for estate wine, which, as I've told you before, is most important for us to get our estate wine right, even though we spend so much more time looking at these single vineyard wines on Drinks with Kate, because a little bit of nasal gazing is always good. Alison, yes, it will be a different visit to Paris for me, looking for vegetarian options, but I've done quite a lot of research, and there are some lovely looking vegetarian and vegan restaurants in Paris that we're going to go and check out. There's also a number of restaurants that I really enjoy that will have plenty of options for Charlotte to have some vegetables and salad and that kind of thing. And if necessary, we're in an apartment, so we can do a little bit of self-catering if it all gets too hard. So that'll be fun too. We want to go to the market and buy some stuff and do a little bit of cooking, which will be ace. Craig, the Drinks with Kate France tour. Yes, look, on those transitions, this year just was too difficult. Next year, Penny and I don't think Penny's on tonight, but if you are, Penny, hi. Penny and I have talked about Italy, and just to make sure that we get everything, all our ducks in a row. And because next year is a busy year for us at Moorooduc, we've got a very special birthday coming up, which not me, but one of my parents is celebrating a milestone, and wants to do some other travel, and Mum and Dad both want to come on these trips as well. So we might we'll probably have a Drinks with Kate tour in 2025, and I'll give you plenty of notice to decide whether you want to come along. It will be that one will be hopefully to the south of Italy, and I think it'll be really fun. But a French wine tour will also be good fun. So just keep it in mind, and we will have more information on what's happening in 2025 very soon, because I think all of us like to plan ahead of time. We can save for it. We can get all of the bookings organised and that kind of thing. So, and champagne is definitely there at some stage. Probably not 2025. But down the track, we'll certainly do some France as well, if you're all still keen. Anyway, it's clicking across to the 45-minute mark, and I've kept the Harrises out of their kitchen for too long, and Karen's in here about to start making noises with the coffee machine, which will totally ruin our whole ambiance. So I'm going to finish up here. I'm going to remind you that next week we're not doing a Drinks with Kate, because I'll be on an aeroplane to Germany at that stage, so I won't be able to attend. The following week we will be doing Drinks with Kate, and that will be our Robinson Chardonnay, and I'll be, I think, in a hotel in Plymouth, but I'm not quite sure, maybe in Bristol, I can't remember. Anyway, I'll be coming to you from somewhere in the UK. And then the week after, I'll be on a plane coming back to Australia. Now, Kay has offered to do a tasting, I think, Tempranillo. Do that on that week that I'm coming home. I think it's like the 11th or so of July. We might coordinate via emails and see if we can get that set up so that you guys have got a chance to have a chat about some Tempranillos in a few weeks' time while I'm flying home. So that's all for me for now. Got to go and finish packing and go to Paris on a train. Thanks, everyone. It's been lovely to see you. Thanks, Jonathan. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thanks, Leonie. It is a gorgeous wine. I'm glad you enjoyed it. See you later, Cotty and John. Charlotte will have a lovely time, I'm sure. She's just come back from the shops, and I think she wants a coffee. I also need a coffee. So love you all. See you later. Take care. Enjoy the rest of that wine if you've got any left. Bye. All right.